Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by T.A. Forsberg and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So commercial real estate is something you're either engaged with or you're not when it comes to office and industrial properties. But I do think everyone gets a little engaged when it comes to retail shops and restaurants and things like that. They tend to drive the fun of a community, the rumor mills. Everyone's kind of excited to hear what's coming next. So here to give an update on the retail and restaurant markets are the retail advisors for Martin Commercial Properties, Carson Patten and Samantha Lee. Welcome to the show, Samantha and Carson.
Hi,
Thank
Chris.
you for having us, Chris.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. So why don't we just kind of give a macro understanding of all the things that Martin Commercial Properties provides to its clients?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having us, Chris. We really appreciate it. So Martin Commercial Properties is Mid-Michigan's premier commercial real estate firm. And we're a family-owned commercial real estate firm that's been around for over 60 years.
Wow.
And we're vertically integrated. We provide 5 lines of services. So brokerage, property management, property development, corporate services, and investment services. And Carson and I work on the retail-focused brokerage team.
Got it. So, specializing in retail, it seems like, I don't know, I think the layperson would say commercial real estate, you put a sign in the ground in front of a building that's not a house, right, and you're in commercial real estate. But to differentiate between kind of an office agent, an industrial agent, and kind of a retail agent, why is it important to specialize?
Oh, it's extremely important. You look at the way deals are structured between office leasing, industrial leasing, and retail leasing, and there's so many different nuances that are specific to those assets or industries. And
right,
when you're looking at property, and a retail prospect is looking for something completely different than an industrial user would be or an office user would be. And then even down to the leasing, there are different ways the deals are structured in which a retailer will go in and negotiate a deal and what they're paying for. So having someone who specializes in doing the same thing day in and day out, you become, quote unquote, an expert in
right,
the retail sphere, and you're able to know what's going on in the market, how to navigate through winning and getting deals done. And that's why we think it's extremely important.
Right on. Okay. And you mentioned leasing. So I think a couple of different things. So you have leasing, and then you also have like purchasing and buying and stuff. So you guys handle both of those things, right?
Yes, we do. So we do leasing, and we represent both tenants, where we're working with tenants with site searches and finding the right retail space for them.
Right.
We also represent landlords, not only here in Mid-Michigan, but all across the state, to help lease up their properties. And then we also represent both sellers and buyers in acquisitions and dispositions.
Got it. Okay. Right. Because the guy who owns a strip mall or whatever might be in Florida, right? And it's like, I got 8 places for people to lease and I got 7 that are filled. You need to go help me find that 8th, right?
Right.
Yep.
That's great. Okay. And right. Because it seems like the lingo and the technical expertise, from an office user, an industrial user, and a retail user, it's important if you're going to advocate on behalf of your client to have that kind of information. Okay. Got it. All right. So, during the pandemic, I guess pre-pandemic things were quote unquote normal, right? Almost booming even. Things were kind of rocking and rolling, then the pandemic hits and everything kind of went kaflooey. Were there any trends that you saw kind of during the pandemic? Were certain types of people looking for stuff, or were certain people did everyone just kind of stop moving around? What did you kind of see from a macro level during the pandemic?
Yeah, well, the pandemic was really scary for a bit in commercial real estate, especially in retail. Everything really started to go on a pause. And then eventually, retail's always adapting. So you saw the successful retailers adapt into more of an omni-channel type strategy where they had more of an online presence, maybe pickup windows, and then, brick and mortar services, but then also the, utilizing online to get out to their customers. And then over time, you see drive-throughs start to pick up, and coffee shops and pizza users really started utilizing those, and you still see them utilizing them to this day.
And something interesting that we're seeing across really all industries in retail is that owners are still having staffing issues, right? So they're wanting to expand, whether they're a local, regional, or sometimes even national users, but they are having trouble finding staff to to man their stores. So that's showing us, that it's taking a little bit slower to get deals done. So that we find that quite interesting.
Yeah, but the activity overall is still there, which is really exciting. And Samantha and I were talking about this before we stepped on, and really activity's been busier now than it has been in the past 2 years, which is great. It's just taking a little longer to get deals to the finish line because of some of the nuances with staffing issues, cost of construction right now, and where interest rates are at.
Got it. Right. Sure. So interest rates, you talk about staffing. So that slows the process down. Mm-hmm. So people are looking aggressively or even in higher volume than what you're seeing before. Okay. Got it. And are they, do you find that the really active users out there are locally owned kind of mom and pops, or are they national franchises that are expanding or a little bit of everything?
We're seeing really a wide range of users looking in our market. And what's really exciting about the Mid-Michigan market is that we have users that don't exist in our market right now. So they're national users that are proven in larger markets who are looking to enter the market. And we've worked with several users who are opening up their first store here in Mid-Michigan. Right. Carson worked with Crumble Cookies to bring the first Crumble Cookies. We're close to opening up the first Hot Works here in Mid-Michigan.
Okay.
So that's very exciting.
What do they do?
It's infrared, yoga, Pilates, cycling, and rowing. So infrared light is supposed to be very good for recovery and a lot of scientific benefits behind it. Yeah.
How about that? Where's that going?
It is going on the ground floor of Skyview. So it's on Michigan Avenue. Right adjacent. Yeah, right adjacent to the Frandor Shopping Center.
Fantastic. Okay, good stuff. So not a restaurant user. Yeah, actually, it's a gym facility. Okay, got it. Seems that's all right. I could go on a bunch of tangents about what types of things are happening. So, so would you say, is there any stress? I guess from an outsider standpoint, you would think with the pandemic, with stores closing and maybe not as many people out there shopping around, although you're saying that that's changing quite a bit. Did you or have you seen or are you seeing landlord distress? Do you have any landlords that are like, holy moly, I've got 5 of my 8 locations empty and now I can't cover my mortgage or whatever they've got on it?
It really depends on the asset class. I would say overall, if you look nationally, vacancy for retail is at an all-time low, which is great. And it's lowering locally here in the Michigan market and the greater Lansing market as well. But, it depends on if you have a Class C or kind of a more worn down strip center.
Yep.
They might be in a little bit more distress than a premier brand new retail facility that's attracting some of these national users. And then you look at some of the big boxes that have filed for bankruptcy, big box users like Rite Aids across the country, they've decided to close a good number of those stores, and those are single tenant boxes for the most part. So those landlords are trying to figure out how to strategize and be creative to get that filled and offset the vacancy that they didn't see coming. So that is kind of always happening in commercial real estate, and you have to be prepared for it, but it really just depends on the asset class in retail.
Right. And I would say adaptability is a constant theme in commercial real estate. So landlords having flexibility and being able to use creativity for their spaces are helping them fill up and keep them full.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to give a nod to one of our sponsors. And when it comes to creating commercial and residential spaces, there's no one I trust more than my friends at the Forsberg Real Estate Company. Brent Forsberg and his team take a holistic approach in creating an environment that suits your needs while creating a foundation for a prosperous community. Since the 1950s, Forsberg has been a name to trust if you're looking to partner on a project, occupy a great space to live or work, or simply follow one of the great thought leaders in our state. Reach out to my friends at the Forsberg Real Estate Company by calling 517-349-9330 or check out their website at lansingrealestate.com. You won't regret it. So, you talk about asset classes. Can you make any assumptions, on kind of a Class C, retail center versus one of these brand new built? Like, can you make some assumptions that the owners have a strategy and maybe a little bit more I don't know, appetite to wait for the right deals versus desperation, or is it really a mixed bag?
Yeah, it's really a mixed bag, and it depends on really the attitude and the mindset of the owner. Some owners are more inclined to get their spaces filled, and then you see them take a more creative approach and get more flexible with their deal-making strategies. You have other landlords that can kind of afford to wait for the right user to go in and fill their property as well. It really just depends on the strategy that each landlord has.
Right. So for a long time, it seemed like kind of the Amazon effect, right? Even pre-pandemic, shopping malls, the historic, classic shopping malls of my youth are kind of fading. And they're talking about brick and mortar retail spaces being a challenge to fill pre-pandemic. And now, and even now, I think there's lending challenges on trying to, for them to build mixed use products where there's retail on the first floor. Lenders don't want to do that. It's like, we don't need more retail space, but a lot of that's already been built, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got the Hub, and we've got, the Red Cedar, and you've got, the one you just mentioned, where the
Skyview, the Abbott. There's a handful.
Right. Yeah. There's a bunch of those that are out there, but it sounds like there's optimism and energy that those spaces are still coveted, and that there are people out there that are looking for that kind of space to occupy. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Okay. There are a lot of, and it's really a different approach when you're going into those spaces, because generally it's not like another traditional strip center that you walk in where it's kind of ready in white box condition, where there's lighting and walls and flooring. It's really just concrete floors, and you have to do all of the work. Okay. So it takes a different type of user to go in and feel comfortable taking on that sort of project. But we are seeing activity, and a good amount of activity, in those types of spaces.
Right. And brick and mortar most certainly is not dead across any of these asset classes. And what we're seeing in malls that have surplus space, we're seeing entertainment users come in and take large sections of malls. We just saw that with Zap Zone opening in the Lansing Mall, and of course High Caliber over in Meridian Township. We're seeing self-storage uses, and we're seeing a lot of flexibility in mall spaces. Some malls even demalling, creating outdoor power centers. That's
fantastic. It would be nice to see some of that happening here in mid-Michigan.
Right.
So,
and it'll take time if we ever see that, but yeah, it'd be great.
Yep. So talk about downtowns, right? Return to office. I know downtown Lansing is probably challenged more than other downtown cores, simply because a lot of our downtown office users are either state agencies or kind of what I'd like to call the state government supply chain, right? And so now everyone working from home, downtown has been challenged, right? So I've had Downtown Lansing Inc. on here. I've had a lot of the success stories. I'm trying to fan the flames of down here. A lot of the examples that you kind of anecdotally threw out seem to be a little bit more suburban based and more walkability, and but what are you seeing kind of in downtown Lansing versus kind of more of the suburban? Is the energy naturally out, or are you hearing more things downtown too?
There's some stuff coming. You look at Bobcat Bonnie's. I think the Gillespie Group has done a great job in doing what they've done on
with the Starbucks,
correct? In the Clara's building, and kind of the Stadium District area is a good area for retail. But overall, when retailers are looking at space, they look at population density, they look at household income, and they look at traffic counts. And when you don't have as many people in this area, it's less attractive to some of the outside retailers that are wanting to come here. So we need to try and find a way to build up that population base and get more people to this area, so we can get more retailers here. Because with no people, the retailers, it makes it really hard for them to survive.
Right. No question.
And hit that critical mass of population density to come to downtown and build more multifamily as well.
And there's a lot of residential that has recently been opened, and here they're flying off the shelves. So there is a lot of 24/7, population. We almost have now the opposite problem of what Lansing has always had, which is everyone's down here for the workday and then everyone leaves and it's quiet. Well, if we could just get some residential to counterbalance that, and we did that, and then the pandemic hit, now we've got all of this over here and not the office users, which is a challenge, but see if we get there. So you clearly seem very versed, not only in what's happening here in mid-Michigan, but you've referenced a few things nationally and trends and things like that. How do you stay sharp? I know there's continuing education for real estate licenses, but it seems like you guys are above and beyond, using other tools to kind of keep your ear to the ground on what's going on. Can you share some of those either affiliations or trade groups or tools that you use to kind of stay sharp?
Yeah. So we're a part of ICSC. It's a national retail organization, and they have conferences across the country multiple times a year. They have one in Las Vegas. They have one in New York. They have local conferences, and it's a good way to stay up to date with everything retail. You're talking to retailers across the country and then retail brokers across the country. And we also just recently joined SiteSource, which is a national retail brokerage network, and Samantha can touch a little bit more on that.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really important for us to be dialed in on what's going on, not only locally, but across the entire United States. And we work all over the state of Michigan. So we're really excited to join SiteSource. It's a retail brokerage network that has 48 offices, so different firms all over the United States. And we have different calls once a month or several times a month where we'll get on the phone with these other firms. And we're talking about what retailers we're seeing open up in their markets, what retailers we're seeing closing, what's the most up-to-date retail news. And that kind of gives us the ability to see what is popular maybe in another Midwest market and have that foresight of what might be coming to mid-Michigan.
What's exciting too is, excuse me, it gets even more specialized in the retail sphere. So there will be separate calls for restaurant news because navigating restaurant sales and leases is different than, say, like a big box Dick's Sporting Goods. And then you'll have big box meetings, and it really gives you a full scope or taste of what's going on nationally and regionally in the retail world.
And is that all kind of peer-to-peer sharing, or does SiteSource kind of manage the call and deliver content?
Yeah, different firms host each month, so they help curate that content. And what's really important for Carson and I is, of course, we love serving mid-Michigan. This is really the bread and butter, and Martin is such a premier firm, and we're so highly supported by Martin Commercial Properties. But we're not looking just to be a local broker, right? So we have the availability and that touch of that personal touch for all of our clients, but we want to have national reach. So that's what's really important for us for joining SiteSource.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, for example, I'm just trying. So, like Dave's Hot Chicken is opening up, I think, this Friday in downtown East Lansing, right? But Dave's Hot Chicken's headquartered somewhere. I'm going to assume it's probably somewhere in the Southeast, right? Like Georgia or Kentucky or Tennessee or something like that. So, would there be like maybe an agency that has a relationship with like Dave's Hot Chicken headquarters, and they're just saying, hey, just so you know, Dave's Hot Chicken is expanding into the Midwest, and they're looking for Michigan sites.
Because they're regional calls, so we'll jump on those too, and they'll say, hey, Dave's Hot Chicken is looking in the Indiana area, and we think eventually they'll move their way up to Michigan, and we kind of have our finger on the pulse of when and who's looking.
And then you could create relationships with that brokerage and just say, hey, we're well equipped to help find the space. We know the market here locally. Okay. Yeah. So that's a real advantage. I mean, that's fantastic. So is this SiteSource, is it a new organization, or have they been around for a while and you just joined?
Yeah, they've been around since 1995. And our firm just joined. And whether it's with SiteSource or attending these national ICSC trade organizations, we're always looking to create deeper connections and expand our network, just so we can be the most knowledgeable experts in our field that we can be.
Right. And I know in other shows I've talked about this before, but if I'm not mistaken, Martin puts out kind of a regional study, right, of kind of what's going on and what's happened. Talk about how often that happens and what kind of content people would find in that.
Yeah, so twice a year we do a deep dive into the commercial real estate sphere, and we have different surveys that go out, or market insights for the office, industrial, and retail asset classes, and really talks about vacancy, absorption, and what's new in each respective submarket. So what we'll do is we'll break down Greater Lansing into different submarkets. So the west side, Saginaw is one area. You have kind of the north area, DeWitt, Bath, Eastwood. You have Okemos and East Lansing as the east submarket, and then you have South Cedar and Pennsylvania, Mason as the south submarket. And then we'll go and do a deeper dive into each of those respective submarkets of Greater Lansing and show what we're seeing.
And that comes out how often?
Twice a year.
Okay, got it. So you could really kind of track it, right? And see it's like how much has changed in the last, since the last report 6 months ago. This area's hot, this area's cooled.
Yes,
these
definitely.
big players have come, these players have kind of gone away.
Right. And our firm has been publishing these reports for over 30 years. So to have that data to go back on is just so important. And we're really excited because we're about to publish our H2 2023 report here very shortly. So it's the beginning of the year. So we'll publish last half's numbers.
Perfect. Okay. And where would people find that?
Yeah, you can find it on our website. So martincommercial.com/insights.
Got it. Okay. And I follow you guys on LinkedIn. And then it seems like there's a lot of news on there. And usually those insights are posted there as well, too. So if you're interested in making sure you catch that when it actually happens, maybe follow Martin Commercial on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow Martin Commercial on LinkedIn. And then, of course, send me and Carson on our personal LinkedIns an invitation because we would love to connect with all of your listeners out there.
Right.
With those insights, we're going to our community and we're doing presentations as well to share as much as we can with as many people as we can.
Got it. Well, it's Samantha Lee, L-E, and then you got Carson Patten, spelled the way you would expect it to be spelled.
Well, E-N. Not O-N. I get
Patten.
that sometimes. Yeah.
Patten. Okay, got it. All right. Anything else trending or anything else you want to share? Big victories, things on the horizon that you're allowed to talk about? I know there's always stuff in the queue that you don't want to jinx.
Yeah, we are, I think one of the biggest things that set our team apart is that Carson and I are our work ethic and that we are a team, so that we have the both of us working on the retail team. We're seasoned and experienced in working with local, regional, and national users, but we still deploy this really energetic, boots on the ground approach when it comes to all of our clients. So we want to deliver results to our clients, and we're working very hard to do that in many different aspects.
Yeah, I mean, I would just tell you as a person on the street, you guys show up. I couldn't even tell you who your competitors are because when I think of retail commercial brokerage, I think of Samantha and Carson. I mean, you're at chamber events, you're at mixers, you're sharing the story, social media presence, all that kind of stuff. So I applaud you for that, if nothing else. I mean, clearly you guys know what you're doing, and I'm excited to continue to fan the flames of your success.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for your support. We're only getting started.
All right. We've been speaking to the retail advisors from the Martin Commercial Properties team, Carson Patten with an E and Samantha Lee with one E. Appreciate you guys coming on board and continued success in 2024.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
us, Chris.